Hello friends, ready for another incredible story? Let's go. In the year million, countless races invaded the Blue Star, which became the battlefield of the Super Era. At the beginning of the war, humans also awakened abilities and attributes, but since they were few, they were at a disadvantage. Using weapons and nuclear bombs, humans managed to build only 10 lines of defense and barely resisted the attacks of the year million. During these 10 years, many of these human defenses had already fallen, and the defeat of the human race was becoming more imminent. In a desperate situation, humans could only resist the attacks of the year million with what they had at hand. According to statistics, since the beginning of this war, more than 1 million soldiers from the Eastern Alliance's frontline had already died. Now, with weapons running out and the increase of attribute bearers, countries began to rely on them to support the battlefield. And so, in the year million, the greatest call in the history of the HUA Empire began. This is the industrial city on the northern border of the Eastern Alliance. A voice announces a soldier with his photo. He is Chan Guahai, 19 years old, killed on the 10th line of defense against the year million, bearer of the level 2 electric attribute, died fighting a rotten giant. Then another soldier is announced, Sulai, 22 years old, killed on the 9th line of defense, bearer of the level 3 fire attribute, carrying a large amount of explosives with him, and his explosion destroyed the year million bridge. The veteran mayor gives the speech, continuing by saying that behind him is the list of soldiers who died on the front line last month. These are our comrades and family, our brothers and sisters, says the veteran mayor. With a very emotional cry, he continues saying that the soldiers were also heroes of Yi City and the HUA Empire. While everyone is emotional, the veteran president says, it has been a few months since the 9th line of defense fell. If the 10,000 races continue to advance and pass through the defenses, the industrial city will be the first to suffer. We have no time to flee. Now, the Eastern Alliance is about to gather 1 million individuals with supernatural abilities for a counterattack against the 10,000 races. The veteran president shouts, "What will you young people of Yi City do?" And they all respond together. "Protect our home, our mountains and rivers," they said with great bravery. At that moment, all the soldiers started shouting repeatedly, "Enlist, enlist." The young people began to approach the man responsible for enlistments, saying they wanted to enlist, and one said he wanted to go to the front line to kill the enemy. Amid the desperate crowd, there was a young man who remained quiet. The man enlisting the youth stamped many enlistment papers every moment, always calling for the next to enlist, until it was Nanzi's turn, and he approached the man's desk. The man began to state Nanzi's characteristics. Name is Nanzi, from Yi City, 20 years old, still with no awakened talent, currently a student at the Architecture University in Yi City Industrial University. Then the man asked if he wanted to enlist for the front line. Nanzi simply replied no, and that he chose to stay behind in the logistics part. The other young people were furious with what they heard and said that logistics is for women, children, and the elderly, and that this is cowardice. The man loudly said to Nanzi, "You are in good health and have excellent grades, and more than that, the front line needs people. At the time our nation needs to survive the most, will you turn your back? Have you forgotten what the 10,000 races are doing to our compatriots?" Nanzi said he hadn't forgotten, but that he had already made his choice. A young man angrily shouted, asking if Nanzi was still the same Nanzi who saved his classmates during the Beast Wave. Suddenly, everyone heard a voice telling them to calm down. It was the veteran president, who said that enlistment was not mandatory, that it was more about personal willingness and a sense of responsibility. He looked at the paper with Nanzi's information and said that he could stay in the rear, but it was a pity because Nanzi's grades were very good. Then he asked Nanzi to take his paper and leave. Nanzi started to leave, and there was a crowd of angry young people around him, some calling him a coward, and others saying that it was because of people like Nanzi that the human race was in this situation. So Nanzi moved away from the crowd while some still called him a coward and said they didn't want to see him again. The next day, there were many war helicopters flying over the sky, and the young people were very confident, saying that victory was theirs, while in the background, a crowd of citizens supported them like a great audience. Nanzi observed the euphoria from afar, and at that moment, his phone rang, signaling some notifications. The news that he had refused to enlist and join the others on the front line spread quickly, and everyone was talking about it. Nanzi thought that they were right to enlist and that they were all heroes, but this battle was like moths going to the flame, and that 1 million troops underestimated the power of the alien races. In Nanzi's past life, he had gone to the front line to fight against the enemy. He had joined the barracks and become a respected tactical commander. While the other humans were forced to retreat step by step, Nanzi dedicated his life to studying the 5 greatest talents and eventually implanted 5 types of talent trees in himself. And while these 5 talents could be enhanced to form a synergy, they could change the course of the war. But unexpectedly, before he could complete his plan, humanity was defeated and Nanzi was killed by one of the strongest beings of the 10,000 races. Nanzi could not accept that and thought that if he had managed to improve his talents earlier, perhaps out of stubbornness or destiny, Nanzi was reborn again. And the 3 talent trees he had implanted in himself were also brought back with him entirely. There are 5 talent trees, which are Beast Domestication Talent Tree, capable of domesticating multiple beasts simultaneously, enhancing their lineages, and controlling mutant beasts. Elemental Talent Tree, mastery over forbidden elemental spells, including water, fire, phoenix, lightning, and more. The more elemental energy spent, the more powerful the spell. Azura Talent Tree, each kill strengthens Berserker amplification. Reaching ultimate focus transforms one into an Azura, capable of annihilating thousands of enemies. Formation Talent Tree, mastery over various formations with unlimited stacking capabilities, able to unleash unlimited power. Undead Talent Tree, capable of summoning the undead. The greater the cost, the stronger the summoned entities. To improve these 5 talents requires a vast amount of origin stones and time. As long as Nanzi can maximize these 5 talents and strategize from thousands of miles away, even if all 10 lines of defense collapse and Nanzi is alone, he will still be able to resist the 10,000 races and protect humanity. Now, even if I go to the battlefield, I won't be able to kill many alien races, nor will I be able to obtain enough source stones to improve my talents. I will only be risking the premature end of my talents, says Nanzi with his head down. He says that the best way to obtain a large amount of origin stones is to go to the test arena, which is full of countless mutant beasts, a perfect place to stock up on source stones for talent improvement. So Nanzi decides to go to the training arena of Yi City, saying that he needs to hurry to get the origin stones and elevate his talents. Amidst some dumpsters, a group of women are talking. One of them says, "Who would have thought that the test fields, initially created to train individuals with supernatural abilities during the first year of the War of the 10,000 Races, would still be useful today?" Another woman says, "All the children are gone, and no one comes to the test fields to train anymore." Another woman, "While taking care of all the mutant beasts there and turning them into rations for the frontline soldiers, couldn't be more perfect." Another, carrying a sack, responds that with this, they can contribute to the country. A woman on crutches warns her Aunt Wang, who is holding the sack, to be careful and not to get hurt. Mrs. Wang responds to the girl, whose name is Xiao Lu, saying that it is nothing, and that she is only worried about not delaying the supplies for the front line, wanting to complete the task this month. The woman helping Mrs. Wang carry the sack says, "Yes, it's a pity that we are all aging. We can't even lift the alloy swords correctly, and we can only deal with those fierce mutant beasts one by one slowly." One of them says that if Xiao Lu could help too, but she uses crutches. At this moment, Nanzi appears, saying hello and that he came to train in the test arena, and the women are surprised. With his hand on the back of his neck and feeling a bit nervous, he says, "You're short on staff, right? I can help you deal with the mutant beasts." Xiao Lu says that's great, and that they were just worried about that. She says she will show him the changing area, and he thanks her for her concern. Mrs. Wang wonders why a young man would go to the training arena at a time like this. Suddenly, she remembers something and immediately searches her pocket. She shows her cell phone to her colleague, saying, "He is that Nanzi who refused to go to the front line. Look at the news here." The other agrees and responds, "It's him indeed. If he's been avoiding the front line, then why is he here at the training arena?" Wang replies that maybe he is trying to make up for the guilt of dodging and living a cowardly life in the rear. The other says no one cares, as they are short of people anyway, and these beasts are very fierce, so let him try. They want to see how long this coward will last in the training field. Xiao Lu hands a sword to Nanzi, saying that this is the alloy sword used to deal with mutant beasts, and warns him that the beasts are fierce, so he should be careful. He takes the sword and thanks her. All of them watches the young man heads towards the training arena, and Xiao Lu thinks that now they can speed up the process a bit. She thinks to herself that Nanzi doesn't talk much, but is quite handsome. But her Aunt Wang says, Xiao Lu, stop daydreaming. No matter how handsome he is, he's still a coward. He is that Nanzi who didn't want to go to the front line. And the young girl, not paying much attention to her aunt, just asks if his name is Nanzi. Her aunt continues wondering how Nanzi, with his cowardice, could have the strength to deal with mutant beasts and that he will probably start crying and leave soon. At that moment, Nanzi passes through a large door, and a system is immediately activated, asking if he wants to start the test, and he confirms, saying yes. The system warns that the test will begin and for him to prepare. Immediately, a large number of monsters appear around him. Nanzi concentrates while sighing. He is ready to fight and says, let's start with the beast taming talent. After the invasion of the 10,000 races, many animals mutated and evolved due to the infusion of spiritual energy. During my previous life on the front line, we faced not only the 10,000 races but also mutant beasts. Take the umbrella bird, for example, which is known for its muscle memory. Nanzi delivers a fatal blow to one of the umbrella birds, and afterward, he obtains some origin stones. A system appears informing Nanzi of his new status concerning the beasts. Nanzi reflects that the talent upgrade mechanism must be the same as in his previous life. Just like killing an umbrella bird results in an origin stone, each time the talent increases, it allows another mutant beast to be tamed. With his face bruised, he says he can endure injuries of this degree. Once again, the monsters advance against our protagonist Nanzi, who says, if I can avoid all attacks hitting vital points, dealing with them quickly shouldn't be a problem. He engages in a fight with one of the creatures, but quickly disposes of it with a kick that destroys its head. He lands on the ground and decides to first eliminate the distractions above. Nanzi rockets between the creatures with his sword, cutting them all with a single stroke. Then the system updates once again, this time allowing 5 beasts to be tamed, and Nanzi feels relieved and says, just as I thought, efficiency has increased. But suddenly something appears behind Nanzi. This time, it's another creature, but this time 1,000 times larger than the others, seemingly a boss. Nanzi is impressed, as this is none other than the emperor of the umbrella birds, and the creature immediately attacks him. He tries to block the attack, but thinks that with his current physical condition, it will be difficult to take it down. I can't face this head-on, said Nanzi as he immediately jumped to the side, causing the creature to crash into the wall. He then concludes that he must first attack the creature's weak points. He strikes the creature but notices that its durability seems improved compared to what he remembers from his previous life. With great bravery, he leaps from the ground towards the creature. The scene now shifts to the 2 women, watching Nanzi while a voice shouts that it is time for the lunch break. Xiao Lu appears and asks if Mrs. Wang and Mrs. Li are going to the cafeteria or will eat right there. But her Aunt Wang tells her not to worry, as she wants to see how long Nanzi can last in the test. Mrs. Li suddenly becomes very nervous and says, I bet he will escape soon. The front line has been pushed to the 8th line of defense now. Our Yi City is only on the 5th, practically no different from the front line. Mrs. Wang says that they cannot allow Nanzi to cause problems there, and if he dares to run, they will stop him. Xiao Lu tries to calm the 2 women, saying that a level A test doesn't seem simpler than the front line. At this moment, the system voice announces that participant Nanzi has completed the first floor of the level A test. Mrs. Wang says that no one has completed a level so quickly, and that Nanzi must have chickened out because he couldn't complete it. But to her surprise, Nanzi appears in front of her, colliding his battered body against her face. She falls to the ground, unable to believe what her eyes are seeing. Nanzi emerges with his clothes torn and many wounds on his body, and the system updates, saying that he killed 2,000 beasts, setting a new record. The women are shocked, especially Mrs. Wang, who was the least likely to believe he could do it, asking incredulously if he passed the level A test. He responds that he did. Xiaolu says that the monster corpses will be processed at this moment. They are startled by the number of monsters to be processed. While Nanzi takes a bath, he hears a warning echoing. It is the war report, saying that the next offensive attack is about to begin. Nanzi reflects on what is happening. Level 7 Super Ability Bearer, Son of Thunder Punishment, and Level 6 Super Ability Bearer, Fire Giant, have arrived at the front line. In my previous life, the Son of Thunder Punishment and the Fire Giant would soon be defeated and perish after entering the battlefield, worsening the frontline situation with even more tragic losses afterward, Nanzi says. It won't be long until the 8th line of defense collapses. He turns off the shower, saying he needs to speed up his preparations because this is a race against time, and there is no time to rest. He needs to go to the second floor of the test arena at that exact moment. The two women push a dumpster, still intrigued by Nanzi's performance. Mrs. Wang says she didn't expect him to complete the test, and Mrs. Liu says that with those injuries, he will need a long rest. But she admits that Nanzi gave it his all because that is a test that few people can pass. Mrs. Wang says that trying to achieve too much at once isn't practical. It's better to advance step by step. Mrs. Liu wonders how long he will need to rest since he has such severe injuries. And Mrs. Wang, still being a troublemaker, responds that he might even declare himself disabled and never come back. But Nanzi was coming right towards them. And once again, she bit her tongue upon seeing Nanzi appear right in front of her. In a bad mood because all her assumptions about Nanzi were wrong, she asks what he still wants there since he just completed the first floor of the test. Nanzi responds that he is going to the second floor to continue the test. She is incredulous and says, "You're going to the second floor with those serious injuries? What are you trying to prove?" Xiaolu appears and, noticing the situation, warns him that the second floor is full of large mutants and beasts and that he should wait and find someone to help him. An older man nearby says that those bull-tiger beasts are like tanks. They are resilient. Ignoring all the warnings, Nanzi proceeds to the test arena and thanks them, but prefers to go alone. Mrs. Wang shouts at Nanzi that if he is so capable, why doesn't he go to the front line instead of showing off his abilities in training? So, all they could do was continue watching, and Xiaolu thinks it's strange for someone like Nanzi, as he doesn't seem like the type to fear death, hiding in the rear. Once again, Nanzi is in the test arena with monsters around him, and the system announces that the level on the second floor has begun. He notices that the second floor is different from the first, mainly because the pressure on the second floor is much greater. Without wasting time, he begins to strike at the creatures around him. But unexpectedly, a type of mutant buffalo hits him with a headbutt to his back, sending Nanzi to the ground. After the unexpected blow, Nanzi reflects, thinking, "I don't have an advantage in size or strength. I can't afford to take hits head-on, especially with my injuries." Nanzi says these beasts are really playing with him, but he is not the type who doesn't prepare. Then the beasts start running to attack him, but Nanzi dodges the attack by jumping over the beast. He immediately pierces the beast with his sword, making a cut. With the beast taming talent in his hand, Nanzi says, since level 2 mutant beasts are within the range of being tamed, why not tame them first and then deal with them? With that, Nanzi manages to control all the other beasts, making them crash to the ground. He says that this should keep the beasts in line and that it is time to continue leveling up, reaching level 3 at once. 3 days later, at the trial grounds of East City's branch, people were busy cutting the meat of the monsters. Meanwhile, according to Nanzi, in just 3 days, more than 10,000 beasts were slain, which was much more efficient than at the front line. Now that Nanzi's beast taming talent had reached level 6, it seemed he could head to the wilderness that night, a place where even someone with level 5 abilities would struggle to escape. Moreover, due to the threat of super ability holders and firearms, the beasts rarely attacked the city directly. Taming them, however, was the key to Nanzi's strategy against the 10,000 races. Meanwhile, an old man asked Nanzi if they needed to work overtime to move one more batch that day. In addition to this old man, they could work extra hours at any time to send supplies to the front line. But Nanzi told him there was no need, as he needed to leave early that day. "See, just a few days and he was already giving up," Mrs. Wang remarked. However, Another man replied to Mrs. Wang, saying that even though Nanzi decided to stay back, the progress in the trial tower had significantly improved thanks to him. Furthermore, the man thought that Nanzi was doing pretty well, but Mrs. Wang told him she wasn't even talking to him, so she asked why he was butting in. She also asked if he had a problem. Immediately, the man responded, saying that Mrs. Wang was the one with the problem, and he asked if she wasn't always picking on Nanzi instead of minding her own work. On the other hand, Xiao Lu informed Nanzing that they had caught up with the backlog in the trial tower. Additionally, Xiao Lu also said that Nanzing could probably take some time off since he had been working hard lately. Without delay, Nanzing thanked her, but said he needed to leave at that moment. "Oh, okay, go rest up. I won't hold you any longer," Xiao Lu said. At that moment, a man ordered the people to make way and not block the road. In addition to him, there were wounded from the front line who needed urgent medical attention. However, according to Nanzi, the influx of wounded from the city at the 5th Defense Line suggested that the situation at the front line was dire. But he didn't even finish speaking when he was suddenly distracted by people talking about rockets. These people were amazed after seeing the rockets. According to a woman on the right, it looked like they were gaining the upper hand. However, someone disagreed, saying it wasn't about gaining the upper hand. The situation was critical and required long-range support from the rear. Nevertheless, according to Nanzi, the day when the defense line would fall wasn't far off, so Nanzi said there was no time to waste. Meanwhile, someone asked the driver why he had stopped the truck since it was dangerous at that time. The driver explained that the truck had broken down, and he was going to check what was wrong. Of all times, that heap decided to fail them at that moment. However, a woman told him to leave the truck there and retrieve it in the morning. Moreover, with mutant wolves nearby, safety was their top priority. Immediately, the driver agreed with the woman but said he would grab his gear first and then get a ride back with her. Suddenly, a man was stunned when Nanzi appeared in front of them. Immediately, the woman asked who that was. She also asked who was going outside the city at that time of night. She then warned Nanzi to be careful, as there were mutant giant wolves ahead, and they were very dangerous. On the other hand, a woman on the left told her older sister that the director had been calling repeatedly. Furthermore, the hospital was swamped with wounded from the front line who were urgently awaiting their medicines. But according to a woman with yellow hair, even driving might not get them past safely. Moreover, leaving that person behind could be dangerous. However, according to the woman on the left, that area was a den of mutant giant wolves. If the wolves attacked, the medical herb collection team wouldn't have the equipment to defend themselves. Additionally, over those 10 years with the 10,000 races, they had seen too many delusional and insane people. Therefore, she told her sister that they couldn't handle that. "All right, enough talk, let's go," the woman declared. But surprisingly, both women were stunned when they saw an injured man who had been attacked by a mutant wolf. Immediately, the woman on the left ordered her sister to drive the car because, according to her, there was a steel giant wolf behind them. But at that very moment, an enormous mutant wolf suddenly appeared in front of them. Immediately, the woman prepared to defend them while ordering her older sister to hurry and drive. Suddenly, the woman opened fire. Meanwhile, Nanzi heard the gunshots coming from the direction of the medical herb collection team. Moreover, according to Nanzi, they weren't just attacking there, but there was also a wolf pack ambushing him, which worked to his advantage, saving him the trouble. Additionally, with the increase in spiritual energy concentration, those monsters had become smarter. On the other hand, the woman on the left told Zion Nan to be careful. However, Zion Nan said she was fine. According to the woman with black hair, whether they killed or fended off the mutant wolves, she ordered her sister to seize the opportunity to drive. "All right, leave it to me," Zion Nan said. At this point, while Nanzi was dealing with these powerful monsters, he wondered if the Wolf King was on his side. Moreover, it seemed that if he handled the wolf pack, the medical team could have been saved. Nevertheless, according to Nanzi, since the boss had shown up, their battle should begin. Suddenly, Nanzi awakened his beast-taming talent, leaving the mutant wolves stunned. At that moment, unexpectedly, Nanzi's power managed to control those enormous monsters. As a result, the Steel Wolf King became furious with what Nanzi did. So the Steel Wolf King also used his power to control his kind. In an instant, a pack of wolves advanced to attack Nanzi, but he was more powerful than them. So he used his powerful skills and said, "Shoot the horse before the rider. Capture the king to apprehend the thieves." The wolf pack was shocked by what Nanzi did. However, according to Nanzi, priority must be given to taming their leader. Fortunately, Nanzi successfully tamed the Steel Wolf King. As a result, the monster seemed to wake up as if the evil spirit that possessed them had disappeared because of what Nanzi did. On the other hand, the woman in black ordered her sister Zion Nanke to continue driving. Zion Nan immediately followed her sister, but to her surprise, the truck wouldn't start. "We're done for," said the woman. This gave the wolves a chance to attack them, but suddenly, the woman was confused by what was happening. She wondered if she was seeing things, as the mutant wolves somehow looked cute. Fortunately, the wolves stopped attacking them and left, leaving the two women speechless. Meanwhile, the pack of wolves gathered in front of Nanzi, and Zion Nan realized that those giant mutant wolves had been tamed. Even so, the woman on the right couldn't believe that a single person had tamed thousands of wolves. She even asked what level of beast tamer that person was, finding the situation unbelievable. Meanwhile, Nanzi mentioned that the pain stones were precious at that moment, with no need to waste them on taming creatures. Moreover, he hadn't expected to deal with pets so soon. "You all seem well behaved. Disperse for now. I'll summon you when needed," said Nanzi. However, he warned the Steel Wolf King not to attack humans. In addition, he knew there were 3 uninhabited areas near East City and even more in distant locations. So he stated that he needed to tame and subdue all the mutant beasts in those regions. For his battle plan, Nanzi needed to gather an army of over 10 million mutant beasts, and additionally, ensuring the safety of the medical herb collection team's path was essential. Suddenly, Nanzi received a message from the factory about an emergency meeting at the trial grounds, which made him curious about what might have happened. Shortly afterward, at the trial grounds of East City's branch, an old man informed everyone that they had disappointed the East City branch. He added that, with the rapid progress, they had thought they could relieve more pressure from the front line, but they were struggling even with slightly higher-level mutant beasts. However, the old man told the officer that this was the first time the new city had dealt with level 4 or higher mutant beasts, and that the factory was currently staffed by elderly people from the rear. He also mentioned that it would take some time to get accustomed to handling these more advanced mutant beasts. This irritated the officer, who asked the old man if he understood the seriousness of the situation, as the frontline troops were almost out of supplies. According to the officer, the stock of mutant beasts in the rear was dwindling, and they needed to start working immediately on those higher-level ones. The old man quickly replied that he understood, and that they would soon send more people from East City to continue this difficult task. But the officer said there was no need, as he had observed the East City branch for half a day and found no one with the capability. He asked if they still wanted to continue and accused them of delaying military supplies, which could lead to the entire East City being punished. Xiao Lu then interrupted, saying that those high-level mutant beasts were almost at level 4, which was already beyond East City's capacity. However, the officer blamed East City for delaying progress and mentioned that the first deserter also came from there. He claimed that East City truly lived up to its reputation for irresponsibility, unable to bear any significant responsibility. "What did you say? I'm tired of you thinking you're special just because you're an officer. You call us irresponsible?" said Mrs. Wong, angrily. She continued by saying that her husband and 3 sons died on the front line for the country, and asked if that was what he called irresponsible. Mrs. Wong also mentioned that they worked tirelessly in shifts to keep up with the supply schedule and angrily asked how he dared to devalue all their efforts with one careless remark. Mrs. Wong's words enraged the officer's guard, who approached to attack her for daring to disrespect an officer. But, unexpectedly, Nanzi suddenly appeared in front of the guard and knocked him out with a single punch, causing him to fall to the ground. The officer was shocked by what had just happened. A man on the left then advised the officer not to resort to violence over an argument. "Finally, our comrade Nanzi is here," exclaimed Mrs. Li. Meanwhile, the old man was perplexed, trying to figure out if that was really Nanzi and what he was doing there. He also couldn't believe that Nanzi had taken down a level 5 ability holder with just one punch and wondered if Nanzi had awakened a new talent. The officer then asked Nanzi who he was and pointed a gun at him, saying that Nanzi had a lot of nerve disrespecting his superior. He also asked if the people in the city were planning a mutiny. Nanzi recognized the officer as the traitor who had enriched himself during the war. He had been identified, and his execution was widely broadcast after Nanzi spent 12 years on the battlefield of the 10,000 races. This officer, known as Lukai, was a parasite in the supply line. According to Nanzi, in his previous life, Lukai had already been trafficking various military supplies from the rear to the front line, causing significant losses before he was discovered. Moreover, Lukai had plans to exploit E-City's processing speed, aiming to slaughter more high-level mutant beasts and line his pockets in the process. Therefore, Nanzi wasn't surprised to see him there. He knew he needed to deal with Lukai, but before doing so, he intended to drain all his resources. So Nanzi told Lin Yukai that there were no rebels trying to cause trouble. The old man at the back asserted that they, the workers, were not the irresponsible people Lin Yukai claimed them to be. "How dare you point a gun at us? Haven't we sacrificed enough on the battlefield of the 10,000 races?" said the man on the right, angrily. Mrs. Lee then mentioned that her aunt's 3 sons had enlisted and were sent to the front line recently, and that her 2 cousins died last month, while her father almost worked himself to death at the substation half a month ago. She just wanted to ask Lin Yukai what more he wanted from them. However, in the back of Lin Yukai's mind, he knew this wouldn't end well. He thought the workers were just old and weak, but it seemed they still had some fight left in them. Lin Yukai had barely finished speaking when he was suddenly shocked and wondered why Nanzi looked so familiar. "Wait, that deserter from East City in the news. Nanzi, you coward. You've been hiding here," Lin Yukai exclaimed angrily. He also added that, by refusing conscription and daring to attack and injure a soldier, they could execute him right on the spot. Without hesitation, Nanzi replied that he didn't really care. Then, he told Lin Yukai that he should know Nanzi had processed tens of thousands of mutant beasts at the trial tower, and if he died, the supply progress would slow down even more. This left the older men stunned, as they couldn't believe that Nanzi was the slaughterhouse expert. According to Nanzi, those high-level mutant beasts could influence human minds with their malignant energy, and other trial grounds also struggled with them, which was why Lin Yukai had come to try his luck in E-City. Moreover, Nanzi mentioned that he would like to take on the task, but since the officer wanted to kill him, there wasn't much he could do. In Lin Yukai's mind, a deserter so familiar with mutant beasts was turning the situation in his favor. Additionally, judging by everyone's reaction, what Nanzi was saying seemed true. So, he thought it might be better to go with the flow since Nanzi was willing to take on the task. This was convenient for Lin Yukai, so he agreed. Lin Yukai hoped Nanzi was telling the truth, and he invited him to make a military pledge. Additionally, Lin Yukai said that by the next day, he would send 5,000 level 4 mutant beasts to the city's trial grounds. If Nanzi could process them within a week, Lin Yukai would let him go. Otherwise, they would settle all old and new scores. Lin Yukai then invited his men to follow him. "A military pledge? Are you serious?" asked Mrs. Lee. Concerned, Xiao Lu asked Nanzing if he could do it alone. She also offered help, but Nanzi told them not to worry, as he believed he could handle the task, although it would be tough for everyone. Even among level 4 mutant beasts, those were some of the strongest, with high defense and strong mental disruption abilities. Not only were they valuable as supplies, but their materials were also highly prized. According to Nanzi, Lin Yukai would do anything for money, but thanks to him, those creatures were the perfect material for upgrading his Azura talent. First, Nanzi would eliminate all the beasts Lin Yukai brought, upgrade his talent, and then take down Lin Yukai and his allies once and for all. The next day, a man dressed in black reported that the 5,000 level 4 mutant beasts had been delivered. Then, a heavy-set man in white ordered the East City branch to inspect and sign off on them. However, Xiao Lu was worried at that moment. Meanwhile, according to the heavy-set man, the military had assigned Nanzi, a logistics soldier from the East City division, to process the 5,000 level 4 mutant beasts. Additionally, Nanzi had to complete the task within a week. The heavy-set man explained that, According to wartime regulations, Nanzi, as a logistics soldier, was under the authority of military supply officer Lin Yukai. He had been charged with insubordination, inciting worker riots, and attacking an officer. Any delay would result in combined charges, and Nanzi would be executed immediately by the firing squad, without the need for higher approval. Xiao Lu was surprised by what the fat man said. Nonetheless, he asked why Nanzi had agreed so readily when they made the military order the day before. He also asked if Nanzi was scared. Additionally, the heavy-set man told Nanzi that when the time came, it would be his duty to execute him personally, and he was sure he would enjoy that moment very much. Suddenly, Nanzi looked at him and commented that all that talk was just messenger's words, which enraged the man in black. However, the heavy-set man said it was okay because, in his opinion, one should be more forgiving toward those about to die. "Let's start the show, Nanzi. I'll be right here waiting for you," said the heavy-set man. Meanwhile, Xiao Lu told Nanzing that unlike the lower levels, dealing with those high-level mutant beasts required the use of anesthetic smoke. However, Mrs. Wang explained that the main components of the anesthetic had been sent to frontline field hospitals, and they had little left in stock. Mrs. Wang was also unsure if they had enough doses at that moment, so she urged Nanzi to be careful. Nanzi immediately agreed with her. On the other hand, the man in black asked the heavy-set man if those mutant beasts couldn't launch mental attacks. He added that most trial grounds avoided those creatures at all costs and questioned how Nanzi seemed so confident. He also asked if Nanzi could be a psychic. The heavy-set man responded that he had tested Nanzi's psychic abilities before, and he showed no reaction to his mental power. Moreover, the heavy-set man claimed that level 4 mutant beasts possessed such strong mental powers that even he found them overwhelming. So, he said it was better to wait and watch Nanzi be destroyed, but that by then, Nanzi would probably be insane, unable to consciously feel the fear of death approaching. However, according to the heavy-set man, the boss was really stingy and didn't like wasting time thinking too much and trusting that deserter was a waste of time. "After I execute the kid, all this loot will be mine. The boss sent you to supervise. You know how to report back to the boss, right?" said the heavy-set man. The man in black replied that he could be trusted to report everything that happened there truthfully. Meanwhile, as Nanzi expected, even when the level 4 mutant beasts were physically immobilized, their mental power was still formidable, and they could conjure such realistic illusions. However, Nanzi was surprised at that moment, but, of course, still managed to destroy the monster. "Nice try, but keep those illusions to yourself," said Nanzi. According to him, as long as the beasts couldn't control him mentally, they were nothing but stationary targets. However, Nanzi needed more malignant energy to upgrade his Azura talent, so he taunted the beasts, saying they had better show their real skills. Suddenly, Nanzi was stunned as he saw malignant energy grabbing him out of nowhere. The monster then spoke, saying, "You are too tired, let it all go. Life should be lived more lightly. Think about the price you've paid, think about those who have died. Is it all worth it, considering the immense power of the 10,000 races? How can you think about revenge? Protecting humanity is a joke. Haven't you seen the future of mankind? Instead of fighting fate, why not?" But the monster couldn't even finish the sentence because Nanzing suddenly grabbed it and asked why it didn't take a break. Then, Nanzing began to slowly remove the malignant energy that had entered his ears. He declared that his revenge against the 10,000 races must be fulfilled. Additionally, he stated that humanity's fate is something humans themselves must decide. The monster was surprised and asked how Nanzing could resist all that malignant energy. Furthermore, the monster asked if he wanted to end up mad and consumed by it, and told him to give up while he still could. However, according to Nanzing, once he activated the Azura talent and entered the Azura state, it would exponentially increase his physical and mental power, and that malignant energy would be the fastest shortcut to upgrading his talent. "Become my power, obediently," said Nanzing. Immediately after, he activated his Azura talent, and because of that, Nanzing screamed as if he was turning into a monster. Meanwhile, others were still demanding more materials. "Where are we supposed to get all this stuff now? Give it up, you fool. Do you know how much money we're making from these materials? Said Lin Yukai. He then ordered the person on the phone to keep the other party under control while he figured something out. On the other hand, a woman told her boss that even with the world ending, he was still working so hard and suggested that he spend more time with her. If you like this video, please subscribe, leave a like and comment for the next part.